Welcome to Aussie Wristwatch. I'm Jess. And before we get started today, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Oyster Man. I'm not too sure if I can share Oyster Man's real name, so I won't. He'll tell me if I can and I'll correct that wrong later. But that and this were made by him. They're really cute and they're just a bit of fun, but they're super fun. They're little replica, non-official, don't say anything to Rolex clocks. And he actually made them, and we email each other, and he said, I've made these just as a little bit of a hobby, just for fun. And I was like, they're super cool. And he's like, well, I'll make you one. I'm like, that'd be great. And then he sent me 4 the other week, or 3. Anyway, there was more than one. And they're just, yeah, they're really sweet. So thank you very much. But today, let's continue the Rolex journey, because I seem to be having some kind of love affair with them at the moment anyway. I thought I'd talk about the Rolex Explorer II, and in particular, this is off the top of my head, the 16570 reference, and it's the Polar, as evidenced by its white dial. And yes, if you've watched a few of my videos, in particular ones where I talk about various different kinds of watches with either beige or white dials, you know that I love a white dial, but up until this point have not had a watch with a white dial. So I'm now into my love affair with a white dial watch, and oddly enough, a circa 2001-2002 version of the Rolex. So yes, this is a second-hand model. The newer model, reference number, let me look this up, because even though my memory is great, it's not that great. So it's the 216570, and that was actually, I guess, 3 models, 3 versions with slight iterations in between. Let me put this back on my wrist, because I've got like the old Nana fidgets, and so you can just hear me shaking and making very annoying noise. Anyway, there's 3 main iterations of this watch with slight variations on the theme in between. First one was 1985 to 1989. Now, you know what's cool about that watch is it actually had a fault in the dial where it went cream after a period of time. So those models, which are oddly the reference 16550, they're highly sought after because of the defect and that cream color. Now, I've seen photos of them and I'll throw them up for you. I haven't seen one of those in IRL, but or out in the wild, I should say. But I kind of like the idea that people love this watch because it's got a defect in it, and it kind of gives it like a distinctive vintage look, maybe. But in any event, yeah, highly sought after on the secondhand market. The one I am wearing is the 16570. Now that was after the previous model, so that was what, 1989, and I think it went until about 2011, so 2011. And obviously they got rid of the defect, and so this one is still perfectly white. So this one's still perfectly white, and it really is very similar to the initial one that I said that kind of had that faulty dial, right? We have Rolex Oyster Perpetual date on the dial with the Explorer II in Roman numerals 2 dial, and then we've got Swiss made down the bottom. Now there's other variations, and I'll have a little chat, but there's other variations that have Swiss on there, but this is the one that's got Swiss made on the dial at the 12 o'clock. This watch is very cool. Now, I am eating my words on this watch because, okay, if you haven't seen it, I don't know whether it's become the bane of my existence, I'm infamous for it, or what to think of it, because honest to God, to this day, it's probably still the most viewed video on my YouTube channel per month. And that is my Rolex rant part 1. Now, most people understood the rant, most people agreed with the rant. The people that didn't understand the rant either told me I should be grateful for trying on watches, and that's just the way it is at Rolex, or called me a sport brat. Have it as you will, I don't care at this point. What I did say, I think, in that video, and I can't bring myself to watch it again, so I'm just going from memory, is the Rolex Explorer II was put on my wrist and I didn't want a bar of it. But that is because, to be fair, I had a notion of what I wanted in my head, and none of the watches that I tried on that day from that AD, not that they were available to buy, they're exhibition only, people, kind of met my expectations. Ironically, and quite not unexpectedly, because I think taste change, I became a slightly more informed consumer on Rolex and the model. I understood how cool and unique and special a Rolex Explorer was, and the purpose behind the design of the watch being that it's got a fixed bezel that tells 24-hour time. So if you're spelunking, which I know we all do on the weekends, and we're in our cave and it's pitch black and we've been down there for 12 hours, we know whether it's AM or PM. That's the basic function of that dial, which I think is spectacular. I'm never going to go spelunking. Love the idea of it, by the way. Now that I'm getting a little bit older, I think it's just really a pipe dream. Actually, it's not spelunking, it's canyoning that I always thought I'd give a crack. Spelunking, I think, is highly dangerous for memory, and so you can take that, as is cave adventures. Just ask those poor boys in Thailand on that soccer team. Anyway, I digress. So this watch is in my collection. It's slightly smaller than the newer model. Now, the newer model, which was 2011 to 2021, which was reference number 216570, kind of actually harked back to a really early original model that had the orange still in it. So this was the pre-1980s version. So whilst we're talking about the Polar, the original Explorer was around the 1970s, right? And the very, very first model of this was quite different. It was quite hard to read that 24-hour bezel because it was etched in. It's now black. It's still etched in, but it's also painted in black. Painted's probably not the right word, don't shoot me for that, but you get the understanding. You get 24-hour time, or the hand that basically indicates, you know, whether it's AM or PM. And I love the way this thing works. It took me a while to get used to it. Now I'm used to it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Was, I should say, in orange, which now kind of harks back to the post 2011 model. So this model, remember I said was 89 to 2011. With various iterations on the model in between. They had different lugs at one point. I think they changed the bracelet slightly throughout the model, but at its core, essentially a very similar watch. It had a fundamental change. They made it slightly bigger in terms of its case diameter when we got to post 2011, which is essentially, notwithstanding there's a 2021 model, which is the 226570. That is quite similar, in my view, to the previous model before it. The later model basically was a 42, or is, I should say, a 42mm case. The GMT hand is back to the orange, where it's currently on my watch, red. And the case on the one that I am wearing is actually smaller. So let's concentrate on this model and the various kind of iterations within this time period. So again, we're talking about 1989 to 2011. So it's actually a long running model, quite a long window there. If you remember that the 85 to the 89 reference probably got KO'd because of its defect in the dial that actually makes it highly desirable now. Love it. But in any event, this one ran for, what is that, 12 years? Yeah. So, as I said, the 16570, basically same general sort of features, right? So it has a 39mm case, 100-meter water resistance. The GMT hand is in red, which is distinctly different from the post-2011 models, which went back to the 1970 model of the orange. I quite like the orange, but I don't mind, in all honesty, the red either. I'll tell you my overall thoughts on the watch in a minute, but yeah, so anyway, with this model there's a few little interesting facts that I delved into, which I have to read a little bit about because let's face it, I'll fuck it up if I don't sort of go through it in that way. But basically we call these the Polar, the collective we, not me, someone named them before me, but the Polar variants, so the white dials we're talking about when I'm talking today. Because the because we have like the white dial, we've had to have black hands, whereas on the black dial, they've got white gold hands. So there's a little difference there. I don't feel too jibbed by that because I prefer having the white dial. I don't know, I think there's something awesome about if you're an actual explorer wearing this white watch in the Polar or something. I don't know, it's probably completely impractical. I mean, think about how cold the metal on your wrist would be to start with, but who needs to think about those things when one is not on a polar safari adventure. But it also had on the 1657 holy lugs and also solid lugs. So it appears to me that I've got holy lugs if I look side on versus the picture reference I'm looking at here without that. The other interesting thing, Rolex shifted to non-radioactive luminova. Okay, thank God. I'm just kidding, it probably would have been totally fine. Now, an easy way to distinguish between the models with tritium and the luminova is examining the base of the dial, because the tritium models are marked Swiss T 25. I don't have that, so I clearly don't have that on my dial. Whereas the luminova models say Swiss, and if they're produced between 98 and 99 or Swiss made, and if they feature super luminova, which were made between 99 and 2011, which I know this is circa about 2001, 2002. It's got tritium lume. Mine is not that adventurous. I don't have a tritium lume, or I don't have a Swiss T on mine. And also because of the long run of this, they have two movements. So prior to 2005, it has a caliber 3185 and it was replaced and updated by the 3186 movement post 2005. So again, I'm going to say 3185 movement in here because it was definitely pre 2005. Like I said, I think it's circa 2001, 2002. It's a K serial number. So someone out there with much more experience than me will know what that means and be able to tell me. It actually came with papers, but I still can't, based on those, kind of completely ascertain the exact year. The other key point with this watch is I'm pretty convinced this one is one of the ones with slightly hollower links, just because it feels much lighter, which I don't mind, to be honest with you, but I'm just not 100% sure. But yeah, it doesn't have the same heft that my Submariner has, that is for sure. Now, it definitely has a different clasp. It's much more simple. It's not as good as you'd expect because it's somewhat older, but it doesn't have the glide clasp. You've got sort of like a quick release system to move the notches in to make it smaller or larger without having to remove extra links. But that does require tools, of which I have, so I've been able to do. But yeah, it just means I'm gonna have to probably reset this band for summer versus winter, rather than the Submariner that I can just easily like slide back and forth. This is my watch. The story of which I've got it, let's just say my wife had a little bit of fun with an online auction in Sydney the other week, and we ended up with a couple of new Rolexes. But I've never had a secondhand watch before. I kind of like that it's old. Okay, just bear with me a sec, because I had a conversation with, and actually it's probably dropped by now, podcast TGVs on it. Jamie and I chat to a bunch of people. They're dropping this week. Please check it out. J&J Hacking Time. TGV on the episode we do with him talks about how he doesn't like secondhand watches because he doesn't know the history of them, and he doesn't know whether there's effectively, my words not his, bad juju with that watch. I get that. I totally get that, actually. I'd never thought about that before, so I was like, oh, fuck. But now that I have a secondhand watch, didn't give it a second thought, to be honest with you. So, what I have noticed with this watch, and I think maybe it's also because of the type of watch it is, like this is effectively meant to be a tool watch for an adventurer. So it's meant to be exceptionally robust. Bang it around, take it on safari, take it to the North Pole, take it to Antarctica, bang it around with your equipment, and it's still going to keep running. It's going to tell you in the dark when you shine your light on it, whether it's day or night. That's the point of this watch. It's got Explorer in its title. So I don't know whether it's because of that I'm happy to wear it with such gay abandon, or because it's also older and secondhand, and it's already effectively, if you ever had a new pair of sneakers as a kid and you were like me with OCD, and you would like put a force field around those shoes so no one would scuff them, and then some motherfucker comes up in the yard and he goes, new shoes, and he stamps on your foot. Someone's already done that to this watch, so I'm not so stressed out about it anymore. Whereas every other new watch I have, I am walking around in that cloud and I am just waiting for that mofo to come up and step on my new pair of shoes. So I think from that point of view, there's something to be said for a secondhand older watch. And this Explorer is a cool watch. Yes, I'm eating my words. I never said I hated Rolex, just to clarify, because a lot of people have somehow misinterpreted everything I've said as being a Rolex hater. No, never. You know, just didn't enjoy certain models. I know the day will come when I will eat my words over the Milgauss house, right? And now that's discontinued. It's going to cost a shit ton of money to buy it. You know, one day I'll probably want one of those watches and I'll be like, yeah, I could have bought that retail. But I'm not there yet, guys, just to be clear. But on this watch, which I initially kind of went, yeah, it's okay. It's better than okay. It's fabulous. I really enjoy wearing this watch. I feel very privileged and very lucky to have it in the collection. You know, would I prefer the newer model with the orange GMT hand? Maybe, but I've got this now, and so I don't need it. You know, this has character. Yes, it's a smaller watch for me at 39mm on my wrist, but it fits great. I never said a smaller watch didn't fit great on me. It's just a personal preference. I'm enjoying my little frolic with smaller watches at the moment, to be honest. I will get back to my Panerais at some point, but I am continuing my honeymoon love affair with Rolex. And this watch in particular has a lot of very interesting history behind it, the iterations of the model. Like, I haven't gone into the black dials, which were the original watches that these are all based on. I've kind of just talked about the Polars, which were always my favorites anyway. And, you know, super cool watch. I've just got it, as I said, I've got it on the AM PM with the GMT as it was originally intended, but you can actually wear it as a genuine GMT watch. I haven't got that far yet. I very much enjoy this watch. I can see why people love this watch and pick this watch over many other more, you know, highly sought after famous models of the Rolex brand. It's got a lot of character. It's genuinely an everyday wear. Could you dress it up and dress it down as much as the Rolex Submariner? No, I don't personally think so, but you can dress it up to a pretty high extent. You can definitely do office casual attire, out on your boat on the weekend, out walking the dog, whatever it is, school runs with the kids, weekend sport, all those types of things. Yeah, it is kind of like an everyday watch. It is an everyday watch, and it's a very good one at that. So thank you for indulging me in my little chat about the Rolex Explorer II Polar, circa 1989 to 2011 model, with this one being somewhere between circa 2001 and 2003. I'm just going to go with split the difference, 2002, but not 100% sure. Doesn't really matter. Who cares? Until next time, guys, have an awesome week. Thank you again. Please listen to the podcast, check out my shop, all those things, and tell your friends about me.